Hello, I'm Dickie Arbiter in London.
And I'm Victoria Arbiter in New York, and you're watching Royal Report. Dad, this week's episode hardly bears an introduction because I think you'd have had to have been living in a barn to have not picked up on the stories surrounding the Princess of Wales, her ongoing recuperation from her abdominal surgery, which we were told about in January, and the conspiracy theories that have not just taken over online, they've taken over in the celebrity world. Every major news network is covering it. And the language being used has really been quite startling and actually alarming in some respects. Here in the US, the Today Show were talking about the Princess of Wales being missing, that she had disappeared. And I think that kind of language is quite dangerous because it feeds these conspiracy theories. We know she's not missing because Kensington Palace told us that she wouldn't be seen until after Easter while she continues to recover privately from her medical procedure. But I think we do need to touch on this because, again, here in the US, celebrities such as Sheryl Crow were getting on that hashtag Where is Kate Middleton bandwagon. And again, I think that's quite hypocritical because, as I understand it, Sheryl Crow took time out from a concert series because she had surgery, which she didn't care to discuss. But what happens, I think what we're seeing is, in part, a lot of clout chasing because people know that the Princess of Wales is drumming up all this publicity, even though she hasn't been seen or heard from in over 2 months. But also, I think what we're seeing are disruptors with an agenda that are trying to promote not just, I think this goes beyond an anti-monarchist stance. I think this goes against an anti-William and Catherine stance. And I think these are mischief makers trying to cause trouble. Now, as we know, there are always conspiracy theories with high-profile figures. Apparently, Marilyn Monroe and Elvis, they're still having a fine time in Vegas. JFK is alive and well somewhere in the world. And of course, you've been privy to all the conspiracy theories surrounding Diana, Princess of Wales. But I think certainly, well, some of these conspiracy theories were quite funny. I think there was one that said that in a moment of madness, the princess had cut a fringe. And so she was hiding away from the British public until it had grown out. You can have a bit of a laugh with those. But I think it becomes a different beast entirely when, and I don't care to repeat some of the really cruel, ugly, insidious ones. But then we're fighting a different beast. And I'm curious to know, what does Kensington Palace do here? As somebody who has worked behind the scenes, you never had to deal with social media. Now, I think what we've seen from them is a refusal to cave to the masses, and I commend them for that. William has never compromised in terms of his family's privacy. He's not going to be bullied into doing so now. But social media allows Kensington Palace to connect with young people. But it also means that once this conspiracy horse has left the stable, it's very difficult to rein it back in. So what do you do?
Well, as you rightly say, it's very difficult to rein it back in, but quite frankly, you don't do anything because if you do something, you're giving the story legs, which is what you don't want to do because it's a question of Kensington Palace says something, then whoever is running the conspiracy theories goes back and says, okay, well, if that's not true, what is true? And you end up with a narrative that you have completely lost control of. So you say nothing. No, I didn't have to deal with things like the social network that we have today, social media. I did have to deal with the internet because I was part of the team that launched the Buckingham Palace website, Royal Web, when was it, 1997, about March or April 97. We'd worked on it for about 4 months. And in the first week, we had over 2 million hits, which was good in those days. But quite frankly, there is nothing you can do. There are conspiracy theorists out there. There will always be conspiracy theorists. You said a few moments ago, JFK, he was assassinated in 1963. There are still conspiracy theorists. With each generation comes along, everyone thinks, or each generation thinks they've got a story, they've got a handle on this particular story. It's a bit like Diana. Diana died in 1997, and there are people today who think, well, all sorts of things, that she was murdered, she was bumped off by the royal family and Nazis, that we heard from late Mohammed Al-Fayed all those years ago. But quite frankly, there are always going to be conspiracy theories. New generations bring new people. New people seem to think that they've got a good idea. The trouble is that those ideas have been around for years, that somebody else had those ideas before them and somebody else before them had those ideas. So there's nothing new. As far as the royal family is concerned, things within the royal family have happened before, just with a different generation and handled differently. But going back to your question, can Kensington Palace handle social media? The answer is no. Just leave it alone. Eventually it'll peter out, or it will be more outrageous, but there's nothing you can actually do about it.
I think, though, what's quite scary, and we saw it on a very minor scale with The Crown, because it was so beautifully shot, everyone assumed it was a documentary. When these conspiracy theories are not pushed back on, people across the world, they start to believe them, and then they take on a life of their own as well. But as you rightly point out, more information leads to more speculation. We saw that with King Charles. Yes, he revealed that he had cancer. Suddenly everyone wanted to know, well, what type of cancer does he have? And so it does start to spiral out of control, which is where the royal family, I mean, it's talked about ad nauseum, never complain, never explain, but it really comes into its own in that regard. I think it was quite interesting. In 2017, William and Harry took part in a documentary about Diana, Princess of Wales. It was reflecting on her life. Of course, it was around, what was that, the 20th anniversary of her passing. And William, at that moment, they shared a lot of unseen family photos, which really illustrated a very happy childhood, of course, before their parents' separation. But he talked about the fact that the only time he really saw his mother crying was when it was something to do with the media. And you know firsthand, and we will get to this, that Diana, she entertained the media. She used them to her advantage. There was a game of cat and mouse. King Charles did the same as well. And I think that is what has informed William's stance today, which is that I am not going to compromise my family's privacy. But I think this quote in particular really hits home for William, and it informs William's approach. He said, Harry and I lived through that, meaning his mother's ongoing interactions with the media. He said, one lesson I've learned is that you never let the media in too far, because it's very difficult to get them back out again. You've got to maintain a barrier and a boundary. He said, because if both sides cross it, a lot of pain can come from it. And he acknowledged that though it can be very unfair when things are being said about you, of course you want to get out there and set the record straight. But he says, you go to the media, you open that door. Once it's open, it is very difficult to push them back out again. And so I think while some people have thought that if they keep pushing and pushing and pushing and saying all these untrue things about it, that's going to make William cave. But I actually think it's going to strengthen his resolve to double down and protect his wife's privacy, because clearly she does not want her medical information being spoken about.
She doesn't want her medical information spoken about, and William will dig his heels in. Now, you mentioned about letting the press in and you'll never get them out again. I actually told the king that when he was Prince of Wales 35 years ago. Let them in and that's it. You will not get them out. They'll be part of your life. And you'll regret it. And even when he did that 94 documentary in which he admitted having committed adultery while still married to Diana, I said, you will regret the warts and all. And, it keeps on being resurrected. But a good example of William, I don't like to use the word control, but I am going to use it in this instance, controlling the narrative. When he didn't appear at late King Constantine Memorial Service, it was made very clear that it's a private matter that has kept him away. And he stuck to that. And yeah, there have been a lot of questions in the British media, but nobody has gone any further to sort of pin him down as to why. All sorts of speculation as to what it might be. But he's dug his heels in. Now, another good example about digging his heels in, it's always been traditional that a new baby is born. Yes, the mother steps out of the Lindo wing, St Mary's Hospital, cradling the baby, father grabs the baby, and there are pretty pictures. And after that, it is left up to the parents to decide which photographer they want to take a photograph for the media. But they decided, no photographers. Catherine will take the pictures. She's an accomplished photographer. And there was a bit of a hoo-ha in the British media until they saw the pictures. Now, children will perform for their parents just as the parents want them to. To a stranger photographer, it doesn't happen. So we've had delightful photographs ever since Prince George was born, right the way through with Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, and family pictures, all taken by Catherine. And they are printable pictures, and they are historical pictures. So that is a good example of William controlling the narrative. And I don't like that word control, but it is probably appropriate in this context. This is Dickie Arbiter in London.
And I'm Victoria Arbiter in New York. Dad and I are thrilled to be back on YouTube, and we are so excited to see that we have just soared past 6,000 subscribers.
So thank you all so very much to all of you who have subscribed. We really do appreciate your continued support.
If this is your first time here or you haven't done so already, please do subscribe now. By doing so, you'll help the channel continue to grow significantly, which will allow us to bring you even more fact-filled content on Royal Report.
Without your support, we just can't do it.
So we've set ourselves a target of 10,000 subscribers.
Look down at the bottom of the screen. How do you think we're doing?
Please click on the subscribe button now. There's no cost to you because subscribing is absolutely free.
And don't forget, you can also click on the little bell, which means that new episodes will be sent direct to your homepage.
Thank you so much. We are thrilled and grateful to welcome each and every one of you
to our Royal Report Club.
We'll see you next time on Royal Report. This week, the internet exploded all over again when a photograph taken by the paparazzi was published in the US and actually around the world. It was published everywhere except the UK, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But it showed the Princess of Wales being driven by her mother, Carol Middleton. They were reportedly returning from the school run, and I think it was hugely encouraging to see that obviously she is recovering well enough that she was able to be sitting up in the car and able to take the children to school with her mum. But that, of course, then led to the most mind-boggling, inane and insane conspiracy theories that it wasn't Catherine, it was her sister Pippa. Someone actually said that on an Australian channel in front of a live studio audience. They also said it was a wax figure. They said that she'd been propped up. It was a cardboard cutout. I mean, honestly, these people need to go out and get themselves a slightly better life, because if you're just like tunnel vision online trying to develop conspiracy theories, it used to be, I think the internet used to be quite a fun place where people could be quite witty, but it spirals into something altogether different and dangerous when they're being purposefully cruel. But again, I think, on the one hand, you're damned either way. Now, some people suggested that Kensington Palace orchestrated that paparazzi picture to try and quell the speculation that the princess was dead. Yes, some people went so far as to think she was dead, where her fans were saying, what are they going to think after Easter when she's resurrected? But so I don't believe for one second that Kensington Palace orchestrated a paparazzi picture. That goes against everything that they believe in. They were photographed on the Windsor estate. It would have been great. It was grainy because it was taken from a very long distance. But here's what people are missing. When we have a story where the Princess of Wales is missing, then the first photograph of her is going to be incredibly valuable. And there's nothing the paparazzi like more, apart from scoring the ultimate picture, is making lots of money. And so that picture would have been incredibly valuable. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to think that there are going to be people staking out the Windsor estate hoping to get that picture. But I do think it's interesting that the UK has stuck to its guns and it didn't publish that picture. And the reason they didn't publish that picture is all going back to 1997. And I'd love if you could speak to that, because I think there are people that just don't know.
There are people who just don't know. And you talk about conspiracy theorists. They complain in the UK that our jails are overcrowded. I think you'll probably find that the funny farms are going to be overcrowded as well, because so many people are going to be collected by others in white coats with all these ridiculous conspiracy theories. But what happened in 1997 after the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, and it was being chased by the paparazzi, that British newspapers made the decision they would not use paparazzi photographs of the royal family, and they've stuck to that. So what you've had pictures published all over the world. The story has run in the UK newspapers, but no pictures. And that is interesting, given that the decision was taken in 1997, and here we are all those years later, and it's still being adhered to. And, quite frankly, the paparazzi are in the business of making money. That's all they're interested in. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who they photograph, whether it's a celebrity or a sports person or a politician. They're going to take those photographs and damn everybody else. And they're going to be laughing all the way to the bank. You remember all those years ago, you and I were rollerblading in Kensington. And a photographer rode past us on his bicycle, and I said, "Hello, Dave." And then I turned around and he disappeared. And there's a slight incline towards the private road that goes past the William IV statue. And I was going down there, and I saw the photographer behind the bushes with a long lens. And I stopped. I said, "What are you doing, Dave?" "She's my daughter." They actually thought that I was rollerblading with, some young bird that I had picked up, which is absolute nonsense. But in order to justify his presence, that photograph ran the following day in one of the British tabloids. It was me on the front page, rollerblading, with a headline, "What does this royal aide have in common with Princess Diana? Turn over." They both rollerblade in Kensington Gardens. So that's the way the paparazzi operates. It doesn't matter who it is, whether you're a royal aide, a starlet, a sports person, a celebrity, they'll take pictures and they'll sell them to the highest bidder.
Aren't we lucky that you are such a good rollerblader? I look like a giraffe trying to find its legs for the first time. So I'm very glad that my picture did not make it into the papers. Although, actually, having said that, Dad, do you remember we went go-karting with Diana, Princess of Wales, and she had hired a photographer to capture images of the event, and they were supposed to be private images. They were never supposed to be seen in the British newspapers.
All over
The
the place.
next day, yeah, they were published, and I thought it was such a letdown. And I did make it into the papers that day, although I put my hair all over my face. I was pulling her overalls off over her trainers because she didn't want to take her trainers off. But I thought in that moment, I recognized how incredibly frustrating it must be. Like you say, whether you're a celebrity, a sports star, a head of state, whoever you are, if the paparazzi are going to print pictures, but they have no morals. If we are going to find the positive in this, though, there's been a lot of ugliness, and it's really been quite horrific. I think, for some of the wittiness, there has been truly some horrendous material published online that we are not going to dignify with repeating here. But if we're going to find the positive, I think this really illustrates the enduring appeal of the British royal family, their fascination with the Princess of Wales, and it speaks to her popularity as well, because other than the photograph that wasn't published in the UK that just from a couple of days ago, people have been talking about her for 2.5 months. She hasn't been seen. She hasn't said anything. Clearly, her presence is missed.
It is missed. It's missed by her organisations. It's missed by the great British public, who like to see her at the organisations, like to see her doing a walkabout. They like to see the photographs in the papers of the work that she is doing. And they like to see her with her children when there is an official photograph to be seen. So they are missing her. And we're living through unique times at the moment, because the Princess of Wales is recuperating at home. We have the King, who has a cancer, who's undergoing treatment at the moment. Yes, he is working on his red boxes. He is having audiences face to face with the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. He had one yesterday with the UK's Chancellor of the Exchequer. And he is holding Privy Council meetings. So he's doing some work, but the frustrating part that he has, which Catherine will feel as well, is not getting out there and meeting the people of the UK and visitors. That is what the job is all about. It's not just about state visits. It's not just about entertaining the great and the good, or going to organisations. It's meeting the people. It's conversing with the people. It's acknowledging the people. And that is what they miss. And certainly the King misses that, because he is a people person, as is Catherine. She is a people person. And we've seen William, the way he operates. He too is a people. In fact, they are all people persons. That is what their job entails, and they are very good at it. So they are missed. the King and Catherine, and in the fullness of time, they will both be back on the royal beat.
Well, on that note, when they are back, I think, Catherine, she's been around long enough to recognize that when she is back, if the conspiracy theories didn't break the internet, her appearance, her first engagement back certainly will. That will be front page news the world over. So I would think she's pretty savvy. She would be wise to use it to perhaps launch the next part of her Shaping Us initiative, or to talk about her early years project, because whenever she appears again in public, whether it's an official engagement or at the launch of one of her initiatives, that is going to be blockbuster news. Now, just as we begin to wrap up on the conspiracy theories, another ugly narrative, I think, that took off this week surrounded the very tragic and untimely death of Thomas Kingston. Of course, he was the husband of Lady Gabriella, the daughter of Prince and Princess Michael of Kent. According to the coroner, he was found, there was no suspicious foul play. He was found with a traumatic head injury and with a gun lying beside him. Horrendous. And that has taken on another whole ugly part of the story online. But the reason I want to raise this now is because, again, this to some degree feeds into the work that Prince William has been doing. He has done so much to highlight male suicide. It is the biggest killer of men in the UK under the age of 45. And I think this will have hit particularly close to home. According to a YouGov poll that was conducted in 2018, 55% of men in the UK feel as if crying makes them less masculine, and men are consistently told to man up. So it has been a very difficult start to the year for the wider royal family. This was utterly tragic, what transpired with Lady Gabriella's husband. They would have been celebrating their 5th wedding anniversary in May. So I know, Dad, you will join me in wanting to send our deepest sympathies to, indeed, Lady Gabriella, the Kingston family, Prince and Princess Michael of Kent, and the wider royal family. And I think what has happened here will have touched William on a deeply personal level, and it's going to further galvanize him to continue the work in that arena, particularly when it comes to protecting his family. So we would love to know what you think on these conspiracy theories. I know a lot of you have done your best to kind of poo-poo them on social media, but of course, the real story is never quite as entertaining as the made-up story, which is why these theories tend to take on a life of their own. Kensington Palace said the Princess of Wales will be back after Easter. Easter is at the end of this month, so everyone is going to have to sit tight and be patient. And I know we both continue to wish the princess continued recovery, and we look forward to seeing her back out on the royal beat soon. So please use the comment section below. If you haven't subscribed already, do so. It is free. Ring the bell, click like, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Royal Report.